Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for our rescheduled third Thursday Facebook Live. My name is Gabby, and I am here with Bridget Barnes, who is our Common Sense parenting expert. And we are here to talk about how to help a child deal with peer pressure. Now, seasonally and year round, this is a great topic, but especially when it comes to going back to school. Going back to school means, kids are in the swing of things and they are doing a lot of social things on the weekends with each other. And there is a lot more opportunity for peer pressure situations to arise. So, we're going to be talking through some of those today. And if you have any questions for Bridget as we go through our conversation, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. And make sure you share this video with other parents who you think may. So, Bridget, how's it going?
Well, it's going really great for me. I'm just coming off vacation, so I'm in a good mental place.
That's good. Well, I'm glad that we could get this moved and still chat with you this month. I know a lot of parents appreciate it. So let's go ahead and jump right in with our first question. So, why is peer pressure a major problem for kids?
Well, negative peer pressure is a major problem because it can affect mental health, right? It can decrease their sense of confidence, or it could create, poor academic performance. Kids, wanting to stay away from school because of the peer pressure. It could distance them from their family or their friends, therefore causing depression and anxiety, and left untreated, maybe turns into self harm or even suicidal thoughts. So it isn't something to take lightly, especially if it's very chronic and ongoing and severe. You'll definitely want to provide support for your kiddo in regards to peer pressure, negative peer pressure, because peer pressure can be positive as well. So I
Right,
want to keep
yes.
that in mind.
What are the common causes of negative peer pressure?
Well, at the top of my list, I think, is this need for humans to be liked. We want to be liked. We want to be accepted. We want, um, those connections with other people. And those are normal wants. But when it gets excessive and you're willing to do anything, if you have kind of a weaker personality that tends to follow and go along with things, or you have a fear of rejection, or you want to, I don't know what kids would say, improve your coolness factor. You want to maybe avoid bullying. Maybe it's a pressure to go along with something you wouldn't do, but you don't want to become the victim of a bully situation.
Hmm.
So some of these are the things uh, that can affect peer pressure. And I have to say, parents play a part in that. If your kiddo comes home and goes, I'm being bullied or being pressured to do so, and you're like, you just need to man up, or you just need to make better decisions and leave it at that,
Right.
and not really kind of work through that with a kid, problem solve that with them, then you're leaving them out there, and they're more likely to fall prey to pressure from others.
Yeah, we don't ever just want to write it off and say, deal with it, because that's not, what a helpful parent does. So that's kind of why we're talking about this today is to give you parents some meaningful ways, realistic ways to help your child work through peer pressure situations. So, how do you think, Bridget, can children resist giving into peer pressure even when it's
Well, definitely having some strategies to help them reduce negative peer pressure. Two things that come to mind is just having a core of positive peers.
yeah,
I mean, if you can have negative peer pressure, you can have positive peer pressure, and looking for those opportunities to create positive peer pressure, and then giving kids tools, skills to be able to negotiate through negative peer pressure. They're going to experience it. You can't keep that from them, nor should you. It's a developmental factor, right?
yeah.
So, but if they have the skill to be able to negotiate through that, then I used to teach my son, like, if you see a circle of guys outside the school and smoke is coming out from that circle, and they say to you, hey, come over here, and you'll go, oh, I'll be right there, gotta go
Yeah.
to the bathroom. Don't come back, or have make up some excuse that you're not going to be involved, but give them some
Right.
tools. Let them have the cool factor, but negotiate out of that situation. So two
Yes.
things: build up a better positive peer group, and then give them the skills to deal with negative peer groups.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I know we all know the saying that they say that you're like the five people that you hang out with the most. So I think
Uh-huh.
that's something important to reiterate to kids and say, if we're thinking of Sally and Emily and Lauren and whatever your friends are, whoever they are, do they have qualities that you want to be like? Or are their qualities maybe not so much? And that can kind of help them determine, oh, I don't know if I'm in the right group, or I might need to get out of this. So I always try to
Well,
do
yeah, yeah, that's a great point, Gabby. Thinking about your five closest friends, but sometimes it's the close friends that can be a big influence. And I might think to this, the kid comes off to me to be very appropriate, but behind the
that.
scenes, they could be totally inappropriate. And so I tell my son or I tell my grandkids, pay attention to your own feelings. How are you feeling about what's going on?
Hmm.
And then kind of planning ahead and talking about peer pressure and how to stop it. And sometimes when kids do those kind of role plays, they have a better confidence about themselves that they can address that. Having the secret code for parents, if you get in a situation, call me up and say this word, and then I'm going to know I need to
I'll come
come,
get you.
and get you or rescue you from that. Like I say, giving excuses, and like you say, having friends with similar values
Yeah.
and beliefs. And I don't know about you, Gabby, but when I was growing up, my parents and even myself as a parent, I got the final say so over who were your associates, those people that you dealt with, but you didn't, and then who were close friends.
Yeah.
And I knew their parents and I knew their values, and that was just kind of how we ran things. But that's very helpful when you do know kids and their families, and you just don't let your kid get into a car with some people you don't really know who
Hmm.
they are.
Yeah, definitely. So the next one is we're going to talk about one of our favorite methods that we often mention during our third Thursdays, and it is the sodas method. So can you talk a little bit about what the sodas method is for maybe those who haven't watched our videos before? And then how can it help kids not get into negative peer
Well, the SOTUS is a method that kids can use that helps them kind of create a strategy, a step by step way of problem solving different situations they might be faced with, whether it be peer pressure or anything else for that matter. And it allows them to pay attention to some pros and cons of the situation, some options that they might have, the disadvantages of those options and the advantages of those options, and to make a decision based on really thinking through things. And after a while, what I see with kids who use this technique is they get better at being able to critically think through that very quickly. Maybe at first it takes them some time, but after a while they'll begin to say, okay, let me problem solve this out. And learning to take the time. Sometimes we don't take any time. We just make a decision and not really think it through. And so, really saying to kids, I want you to think this through before you decide you're going to do this. Just because everybody else is doing it
right?
does not make that what you should do. But it really does give kids a really cool blueprint of
Yeah.
so they can set down their own values, their own beliefs, and to be able to communicate that to someone else of why I decided to do this. And sometimes when you use the so, this is not the decision I would decide, but it's not harmful. It doesn't go against our values or our beliefs, but this is what the kids decided. I'm going to spend all my money to go do this with my friends. And okay, if it's not illegal and it's okay, then I'm not going to stand in the way, but you're spending all your money, not what I would suggest, but
Right.
you know. Mhm.
Yeah, I think any tangible things that, parents can do to sit down with their kids, the SOTUS method is a great one. So I see we just had that linked in the comment section. So you can head to our website and check. Okay, the next one is most teenagers who start using drugs and alcohol tend to do so because oftentimes they're pressured by their peers. So, how can parents teach teenagers those ways to handle peer pressure, say no, and find friends who actually contribute to success?
I didn't hear that whole question, Gabby. So I think I'm going to try to repeat that. Did you say how can teens handle peer pressure so in order to say no to their friends,
Yeah,
so they won't feel pressured to get to take drugs or
yeah.
use different substances? Oh, okay. All right. Thanks. So, if kids feel they need to impress others, this can be a problem for them. And so, kind of getting after that conversation of why do you feel you need to impress other people? Because so if you notice that you have a kiddo who does that a lot, who tries to please others,
Mhm.
and that's kind of a two-edged sword. It's kind of a good thing to want to please other people, but if you want to do it so excessively that you put your own needs aside, so teaching that kid to self advocate uh, is important.
Yeah.
So they make good decisions about that. Then you might have a kid who's got risky behavior. they they have peers that pressure them, not so much, but like, oh, well, let's go and do this behavior. And so I try to have those kids think about the impact of their risky behavior on other people.
Hmm.
If you really care about your friends, and you get hurt doing this, or someone dies doing this, or someone has an overdose doing this, how's that going to make you feel? What responsibility do you have in that? Um, so really sitting down and kind of making them think about the impact of their risky behaviors. Also, just talking about the rules, having rules, and then talking about that. I know we talked about the last time we were together, kids going off to college, but kids still need to have rules, even if they're away at college, and especially then when there's nobody to enforce those rules. And kind of talking about the rules that they have for themselves and how they're going to enforce their own expectation on themselves and on their friends when their friends are saying, let's go out and party, and they've got a test tomorrow.
Yeah.
What should they do?
Right.
So, two big things to teach kids: self advocacy and sensitivity to others. If you see that you're in a peer group who are really kind of like mean girls or really negative, teaching them how to be more sensitive or standing up for other people when someone isn't being sensitive, or standing up for yourself when someone's trying to pressure you to take drugs or to do behaviors that could lead to um, risky behavior.
Hmm. Yeah, we do have linked in the comments here a guide on Boys Town parenting for understanding your risk-taking teen. So if that is what your child's like, definitely check out that guide because it's super.
Yeah,
I think
you don't want to get risky behavior. It can be a real motivating thing for some kids. Later on in life they'll be the go-getters and that kind of thing. You just need to help them focus that to a positive thing, to a
yes.
positive life, versus trying to get that all the way out of them. Just say, let's really think about things before you step out and start doing that.
Yeah. Real quick, back to the sodas method. We do have a question on that. Are there any, or what age should we use sodas? Somebody's asking.
Yeah, excellent question. What age should we use the sodas? Well, really, we can start using parts of the sodas when they're very young. Giving kids choices, not everything should be a choice, but giving the kids choices between this candy and this candy, or whatever, can help them begin the process to being able to critically think. And then just adding on to that as they developmentally show you they are capable of looking at disadvantages. What's better about this sucker? Well, it's bigger. Okay, what's not so good about that? It's purple. Ooh.
Yeah.
So whatever, as the child begins to develop their ability, and I really put that according to developmental ability versus age, because you can have a 15-year-old who's really operating on a 13-year-old level,
Yeah.
and you can't treat him like he's 15. So
Yeah.
you have to depend on the child's ability, and that takes communication on the parents' part and knowing the kid and walking through that soda. So little by little, so when they are of age, they have the whole sodas down versus one day you decide, oh, you're 15, let me teach you about the sodas.
Right.
I would probably start just being able to identify the real situation. That's the first, that's the S in SOTUS, identify the situation. And then the O, what are our options? So keep building onto that. Then the disadvantages and the advantages, and then that solution. And by the time the child can do that at 15 on their own, you're like, I'm good.
Yeah. So definitely introducing early is key.
Yes.
Great. Okay, so the next question is, which, by the way, that was a great question. So if you're watching and you have any questions, feel free to leave them and then we'll answer them throughout. So you're welcome. Okay, the next one is, how can parents respond to feedback from their kids when they say, but mom, everyone else is doing it?
Well, I try not to get in any kind of debate with kids on what everybody else is
Yeah,
doing. I just remind them that yes, everybody, there might be a lot of kids who are doing that. You're right.
yeah,
I agree with them. Yes, yeah. Might be a lot of kids doing that. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about your responsibility and our rules.
mm-hmm.
So let's focus on that. So just trying not to get caught in that sidetrack, that argument cycle that the kids are trying to lead you in, everybody else is doing it. That's no reason to do it. So I don't even debate that. I
Yeah,
just go, you're right. They might be doing that, but we're talking about our family, our rules, and your responsibility.
mm-hmm. That's a short, sweet answer that I don't think they can argue with. Well, we hope they can. They'll probably find a way, but
They're probably really, but I just repeated, like I said,
yeah,
broken record. There I am. I'm using that again and again.
right. Okay, what can parents do about their teens who are notorious risk takers? I know we talked a little bit about trying to gear it towards being more positive, but
Mhm.
what advice do you have for that?
Well, I have to be honest. I think when I was a little younger, I was a little bit more of a risk taker than maybe my siblings.
Yeah,
And I was kind of really given a positive risk taking behaviors to do. For example, learning to fly a plane. I guess you could say that's a risky behavior, but at 17,
yeah,
my brother gave me flying lessons, or bought them for me so I could learn to fly. And I had that kind. I love to travel. I love to be on my own. I love to do those kind of things.
yeah,
So just directing that kid toward positive risk taking behaviors. And you're not going to get that out of the kid. You've got a kid who takes risks, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just when they take risks on things that can hurt them,
mhm,
uh, uh, like drugs or behaviors that are illegal or immoral
right,
against their value systems.
yeah. What a fun thing that you did. We could always say, well, we could get you maybe skydiving lessons for your birthday, and that's a risk, but at least
There you go.
they're
Are look are yeah, looking for a career that's a little bit more risky. Like even when there's like you, who do you want to be, and then focusing on doing that, and then
Mhm.
taking little steps toward that. Whether whatever they decide. I want to swim with the sharks. I don't know. Well, let's go to the zoo and look, and talk to somebody. Maybe you can get an internship there, or whatever the case may be. Just helping them focus on risky behavior, and trying to make it a little less risky for things that might hurt them in the long run.
For sure.
Mhm.
Okay, we've got two more questions for those watching. So if you have a question, now is the time to comment it. How can children handle situations where they don't want to give in to negative peer pressure, but are afraid of losing friends if they don't?
Mm. Yeah, that's a hard one for kids when they want to keep their friends, but their friends are pressuring them to do things that they know they don't want to do. And I would just really talk to my child about the characteristics of being a good friend. And when you start listing those things and say, well, is Sally doing those things, or is she kind of doing this other stuff that makes you feel bad in the long run? And is that really the characteristics of a good friend? Is that what you want to keep around? So, also, and maybe even talking to your kid about what behaviors they're exhibiting to attract good people, right?
Right.
So if I'm kind of, negative and I gossip a lot, I guess I'm going to attract people who do those kind of things, like being a smoker or anything else. If I or somebody who curses, I'm going to probably attract that kind of personality. So
Mhm.
doing some self-assessment might be a good idea. I think a lot of parents go, it's their peers, they're pressuring them, and not really looking at what is my kid doing that might be attracting this type of kid. Sometimes if kids are weak in their own personality and they allow a kid to kind of take over um, them, can also be something to examine as far as their personality and how to give them opportunities to build up their confidence. I'm telling you, after I flew a plane, I was like, I believe I can do anything. So, I don't
I
know.
feel like
you know,
flying lessons are the key in this presentation. That's the answer,
I,
everybody. No, I
I'm not sure
totally
that's the
get what
answer,
you're
but
saying.
definitely, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely giving kids self-assessment and then going down, making a little list about what's good and what's not so good about that friend, and letting them choose. Hey, is this somebody I want in my life? And if I do, how in my friendship circle, where do they land? Kind of on the outer circle, or are they really close to me? And putting that person where they belong.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know, like in high school, it can seem like the end of the world. Like, oh my gosh, I cannot afford to lose this friend. And, you work so hard to maintain those friendships. But I love what you said about kind of looking within and seeing, how does this friend really treat me? And how do I treat them? And, kind of doing that reflection. Great, great idea
Yeah.
when it comes to reassessing those behaviors.
I mean, maybe you can keep that friend. You just keep them at a distance.
Yeah,
Or when they do those behaviors, you walk away or you say, you know what, I've got something else to do. You just, divorce yourself from that kind of behavior. And they're going to kind of notice, well, she's not joining in, or she's not doing this or that, or he's not doing this or that. And they'll notice, and they'll might begin to not want to be around you because you're not drinking or you're not doing whatever it is they're doing, but you're trying to change yourself for the
yeah,
better. So,
definitely. Okay, well, Bridget, do you have any last words of advice for parents watching about dealing with negative peer pressure?
well, when it comes to dealing with negative peer pressure, a few things come to mind. One, it's normal for kids to find themselves in a situation where they're being pressured, and that children need to develop and problem solve it. It's not necessarily a bad thing unless they don't have the skill set to problem solve those situations out, right?
Yeah,
It's a great testing ground to reaffirm their own values when they're met with negative peer or negative behavior, to see where their values fall and if they're willing to give up on their own values for their friends. And then talking about that. That's a big thing to do, to give up some part of yourself for someone else, and why are you making that decision, and then working on that. I think it can be a very positive experience when kids have positive peer pressure, but it also can be a learning opportunity when they experience negative peer pressure. Um, but I want them to eventually, especially my kids, my grandkids, to build up this self defense of self worth. And
yeah,
that's what negative peer pressure does. It makes you be able to stand up against something that's trying to tell you you should do what everybody else is doing, and you have a sense of, I know who I am. And that's an important tool to our skill to be able to develop in kids. So don't be afraid, moms and dads. when kids are faced with negative peer pressure, give them the tools, give them the support, and give them the time to develop their own sense of self worth.
Well said. Well said. Well, everyone, we do have a plethora of tools on boystown.org about dealing with peer pressure. So I've linked some in this video, and then also if you just head to our website and search peer pressure at the top, you can find the list. And of course, we are continuing to offer our Boys experiences. So you can sign up for those. They are virtual. So work with and learn more about so we hope you enjoy and we will talk to you next time. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye bye.